Well, thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here. An amazing space indeed. It's a funny team restart, isn't it? Because in the word itself is already so much, as if there is a beginning and an end, and like with Monopoly, you can go back. But what if that's not possible? What if every moment is completely new, and you can never go back? You can never restart, because everything you do is always completely different. So what if things are not linear, but what if things are circular? Things are completely different every time and again. This is something that a lot of scientists, of course, already work with, like Einstein. So logic brings you from A to B. But imagination, creativity, what this morning is all about, is not something from A to B. So restart actually is an impossibility. It's nice to talk about impossibilities, because their creativity starts again. Then this place, the new Werktheater, that's also an amazing place. One of my closest friends is an actor, and he started with the Werktheater in the 70s. So this group of people that started this theater started in the 70s. And what they did was turn around every idea about playing plays. So actors acted differently, the pieces were completely different, they reconstructed and deconstructed texts. The directors were not directors of the theater, but also actors. So they turned everything around, and it was an amazing experimental area. And when I talked with my friend about this time, it was a place where creativity was at the forefront. So it was not about business, it was not about success, but it was about actually finding the creativity in yourself and having a space to experiment with that without having to bother about any outside ideas. So it was a safe place to create experiments. And I love this idea of that you have a safe space to investigate. Where do we find these spaces nowadays? Most of the time there's a lot of pressure to create. And most of the time we put pressure on ourselves, isn't it? That we have to be successful at a certain age, and that we have to produce, and that we have to keep up that image of being a creative being. What if all these ideas, just if you throw it away, and just go deep inwards yourself and have the space and the time to experiment what your particular, your unique creativity is all about. Because one thing is for sure, we are all creative beings. But do we give ourselves the time and the space and the environment to experiment with that, to find that out? When I was invited, the organization asked me to talk a little bit about myself. I will do it very short because it's not very interesting. I would love to talk about a lot of other people that are doing great stuff and to inspire you. But just to get to know each other a little bit better, I worked in the creative industry from my early 20s. I studied commercial economics, started working for advertising agencies and companies directly. And then I started writing about creativity. I wrote a book about design in 2000 called Symbol Soup. It was an amazing project. I could travel all around the world and interview I thought at that time the best creatives all over the world, in Japan and in the States. And I wrote this book, and due to this book I gave a lot of presentations. And then somewhere around, I have to turn a little bit around. Yeah? Okay. Better like this? And it's my pace, the fastness of my voice. Is that good for you? Is it? You follow? Yeah, because it's funny. I mean, I'm invited here to do a presentation, but actually this is a dialogue. So I watch you and I see your faces and your reactions, and that also is input for me to somehow adjust my presentation. Oh yeah, so I wrote this book and I gave a lot of presentations, and suddenly when I was 33 or 34, I had to give a presentation to 10 CEOs. And I was standing in front of them just like this, and then I fainted. And it was quite an intense situation. So once I was conscious again, the guy that organized it said, yes, those 10 people, they are CEOs from big companies and I never get them together, so take a Coca-Cola and just restart again. And so I did that, but it was a restart actually of my complete life, because after that I got a lot of problems with anxiety and I could not leave my house anymore. I was completely locked down and there was a lot of tension in my system. And that was pretty weird, because before that time, before my 33 year, before I was 33, I got a lot of interviews and I thought I had a lot of success. So I was completely blown away how that could be possible. Suddenly the whole foundation of what I created was gone. And actually, and it's of course a little bit the cheesy story, in the end it's also a very fruitful period, because it gave me the time to re-evaluate the things I've done. And one of the things I noticed was that I was so driven by that success, and it was like a drug, that I didn't took the time anymore to really dive into myself. If I really wanted to do the stuff I did at that time. And from that time I started to do things differently. I quit the creative industry and I started writing. I love to write. Already from a young age I love to write. But I'm raised in a very simple family. My father cannot read and write. And when I was 15, all the teachers said, well, your Dutch is terrible. I mean, you will never succeed in writing. And so I started writing and taking lessons, and I felt like a student again when I was 33. And it was amazing, actually. So to find teachers and to find myself in a situation to learn grammar for the first time in a really good way, and to know how to write stories. And that was beautiful, because the pressure of success was gone. And the time to explore what my creativity was, what I wanted to put into this world, started. And I think that we would need a time like that in our lives, all of us. And we can give that to ourselves in a very simple way. In a way that we put off the pressure of the outside world, to dive into ourselves, what your unique being, because that's what we are. We are all completely unique. No one is exactly the same as you are. What your complete, unique being wants to add up in this world. And I think that's what creativity is all about. It's not about what you produce, but it's about finding out what your place in this world is. And I think once you find that out, once you find that spot, then suddenly it's not about success anymore, but it's about being in a flow, feeling completely connected to yourself and to the world around you. And then creativity is just pouring out of your veins. It's not something you have to search for. It's not something that you create with willpower, but you find a source. It just goes through your veins. And you'll be surprised then by yourself what you create. I think it's nice when you yourself are in a creative environment to give yourself that space and to give others that space. Werktheater was one of those places. And in order to do that, I think an essential element is to create a certain kind of openness. To be open and aware. Not only open and aware of what's happening in the outside world, but also open and aware of your own sensations in your body. But if you listen very carefully, you know when creativity is flowing, and you know when you're doing things for the wrong ideas. So I just wrote an amazing story about Agnes Martins. She's an artist, and she made these beautiful paintings, like very abstract lines, very simple lines. She started painting when she was 30. Until she was 50, so 20 years of painting, she saw those 20 years as simply exercise. The moment when she was 50 and she said, oh, this is actually unique for my being, this is what I want to create. She destroyed all the work she'd done in those 20 years. Not based on harsh criticism, but acknowledging that we have to take the time to find out what we want to create. So that's another part. Can we give ourselves time to experiment, to just do stuff without any goal, without the pressure of success, without the pressure of putting stuff out, without Instagramming it, Facebooking it, but just for ourselves. I have a friend, he paints already for 20, 25 years, never sold a painting. Every time he goes to his atelier, he paints, and he loves it. It's amazing. So for him, it's not about what he puts in the world, but for him, it's the act of creating, the act of recreating himself and learning that's essential. There's in 2017, the Biennale in Venice, a woman was being put forward by the UK. She was in her 70s. She was never picked up by press. She never had an exhibition. And in the interview with her, she's 72, she said, I thank God that there was no one on my back and taking interviews and trying to record my success or what I was doing. I had 70 years of time to experiment. What a blessing. So, can we stay open for our own learning process? Not being bothered what the outside world is asking us. And maybe not 10 or 20 years or 50 years, but at least a few months, or a few weeks, or at least a few hours, or at least a few minutes per day. Just to know that what you're doing is what you want to do. And can you give yourself the time to experiment, like Werktheater did? Just to play, just to make mistakes, just to make bullshit, just for the sake of inventing, just for the sake of creating. I love jazz music. I never had anything with music, but 2 years ago I thought, well, this is something I have to investigate. So I went to these record stores and I got all drawn in the romanticism of those beautiful records. And then I found out Johnny Coltrane, and Johnny Coltrane was already at a young age, he was quite successful. And then he had these amazing performances and huge reviews. And then suddenly he chose another direction. He played in a big band. People said, in a big band, what are you doing? And then he started to do classical things, and people thought he was crazy. But for him, it was not craziness or an escape. For him, it was to explore music in all its different aspects. And from that investigation, from that time to leave behind the success and become a student again and to dive into other music areas, made him the most amazing jazz artist of all time, because he could combine everything. He could connect dots no one else could. So most of the time we think that we have to fixate on a certain subject, that we have to dive into something and go in that, the focus. But maybe the focus is also the focus of going broad. And not in all kind of different directions, but if you go into a certain area, can you investigate that whole area? So I'm writing, and I like certain kind of books. But I love to read books now from a old perspective. I would hate thrillers, love stories, just to see the techniques of all these different writers and what they did, in order to learn, in order to see if I connect different stuff. And if you do so, if you connect all these things, of course you make mistakes. Of course, things will not lead to success immediately. I just said I started writing when I was 35, 36. I published my first novel when I was in my early 40s. It sold 1,000 copies. I was so devastated. I thought I created a bestseller. 1,000 copies. Worked 5 years. Then the second novel, I thought, well, this will kick off. Sold 800 copies. Oh my God, this is my area. And now I'm working with my third, and I thought, I need new teachers. So I try to find new teachers, and amazing people come on my path. And I'm experimenting with different techniques and finding out. And suddenly the whole pressure of the amount of books I'm selling is not an issue anymore. Well, maybe I'm publishing the third one, I don't know. But now at this time I'm busy with trying to learn, trying to see if I can find something new, trying to find the flow. And in order to do so, I have to fight my own resistance, my own insecurities, my own ideas of who I am and what I want to reach. And maybe that's the biggest journey you have to make. The journey is not outwards, but it's the journey inwards. To battle your own demons and to make space, really make space for creativity to flow through you. And that is not only a mental path, it's also very physical. Just listening to the sensations in your body, listening to what's happening in your body, listening to the fears, listening to your longings, and dare to make beautiful mistakes. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna create? What are you gonna add up? How do you get into your flow? How do you find something that you love so much and let it go again to find something that you love even better? This whole process of getting into a flow, to feel completely connected to yourself, without the pressure of the outside world, and thus feel connected to the source of creation. That's something that fascinates me in such a high degree that I started a foundation with Robin 10 years ago, which is called Your Lab, where we have all these experiments to create that space. A place where there is no pressure, a place where you can experiment, a place where you can have and find the silence to feel what's really yours, what makes you unique, what's your story, and how you can create that story in such a way that you live a life full of creation in order not to be creative, but to feel that your being is all about creativity. Are there any questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
While I'm recording. What about purpose?
Yeah.
Can you talk about purpose?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. Yeah.
How would you place purpose?
Yeah.
Versus just allow it to be.
Yeah.
Find
It's
it.
amazing.
Let it flow.
Very, very good question. So, the mistake I made for a long time, and that's why I've drifted 50 years in kind of no man's land, was that I had no purpose, I had no focus. So I had the romantic idea that when I would just be silent and open, then that stuff would come to me. That's bullshit. So, actually you need to have focus and purpose. But the tricky thing here is, where does that focus comes from? So, for a long time, my focus was, well, in my early 30s, I need to get money, I need to earn a lot of money, I need to get safe, I want to have a good car, a nice house. So I had all these ideas of my purpose. And maybe that's not even bad, I mean. But for me, it was not the real purpose. The purpose behind all these longings was that I want to feel safe. And then I felt, if I want to be safe, why do I feel unsafe? So it was investigating all my purposes in order to find the core purpose. And when I want to feel safe, and I didn't feel safe, I needed to try to get that unsafety out of my system, and then suddenly a whole new longing came, a whole new purpose came. So it's not only about creating purpose, but first of all, taking the time to find the source of that purpose. Where does this purpose come from? Why do you want to do the things you do right now? So what's your idea of your life, and where does it come from? And does it come from a free source, or does it come from fear? And only when it comes from freedom, it can burst out creativity. When it comes from fear, it creates a lot of confusion, a lot of battle, a lot of pain, a lot of stress, a lot of burnouts. Taking the time to find that purpose. And once you have that purpose, then it's nice to find people that share that purpose. And find people that are sweet and tender. Because most of the time we want to reach out so fast. And we are so good in giving criticism all the time. Please find the time also to find people that are tender and that give you the space to experiment.
So, what's the role of patience? To be patient. You were talking about we have to wait and then learn through the process. How can we, because we live in a world that is fast.
Yeah.
How is the role of patience
Yeah,
in this process?
great question. So, the world is not going faster. Same time. Same clock. Same minutes ticking. It's the idea that we have of ourselves that we have to do that. It's the pressure of the outside world that gives that. So when a client comes to me and he says, because sometimes I still do commercial work, you have to deliver next week. And I say, okay, if I deliver next week, I give you 20% of the quality I can give you. If I give you 3 more weeks, I can give you 100%. I'm not here to give you 20%. So if you want this, then you have to go to someone else. So you can play with the rules yourself. The rules are not fixated. We always think that rules are fixated. You can change the rules. You can change the timing. You can find your own pace. And once you do that, it's fascinating what happens. People get more interested. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right, okay. So you start a discussion, you start a dialogue about it. All these fixated ideas about pressure. It's just an idea, and we can change ideas.
Can you tell us more about the Your Labs and how you created that space for you?
Yeah. So I started Your Lab 10 years ago when I had this severe burnout and I tried to find people to help me out. Then I went to doctors and they gave me medication, and I went to psychologists and they said there's a lot of anger and fear in your system. Yes, I know. And then I worked with martial artists, and martial artists was about focus, but also silence in yourself. And it's amazing that the training of martial art is for a very long time to stand in one simple position in order to find complete silence in yourself, to feel connected with yourself. And then it's possible to battle because you are connected also with the other one, and you know when he wants to move, so you can move along with it. And that helped me a lot. And so I started a space where we could investigate the way we make stories about ourselves, about the outside world, and about others, and to somehow through meditation, martial arts techniques, reflections, to loosen up those stories. So it's an investigative space based on all different kinds of techniques, among which martial arts is one of it, to broaden up your story in order to become a creative being. Is that a bit clear, or? Yeah? Yeah.
What do you do exactly in your life? Like, if you would be interested in going there, which kind of programs and do?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I just said that all of us are completely different. So what the program does is not a fixated program, but everyone that goes in there finds out for themselves what's important to them. So it's it's very based on every being, every attendant that's there to make an almost tailor-made program for them. And so what you do is it's based on 3 principles. It's a physical level, a mental level, and an energetic level. And all those 3 levels are combined in order to feel a whole being, to become a whole being. And to get clarity, focus and goals coming from a clear ground. And it's experience-based, so it's not talks, it's only experiencing. So like, for example, with martial arts, some exercises where you feel the sensations in your body and where it's flowing or not, and how you can change the parts in your body that's not flowing into more spaciousness. So it's what it is, yeah. And we have retreats. It's a 4-day retreat here in the Netherlands and in Italy, and we have a year program. And then you do 4 days, and every month you come back again. Was there someone else in the back? Yeah.
I had a question about learning all these skills.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a big part of unlearning also, like past behavior, old self,
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about
Yeah. So that's a whole, actually quite complex area, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible in order for me to understand it myself. So, due to our upbringing and past experience, we create certain patterns, kind of filters through which we look through the world. And to be an open being, a creative being, is trying to understand where those filters, those patterns come from, and trying to make them more open. So, I give a simple example. People always said to me that I was a very empathic being. And I thought, yes, that's nice, people say. Then I investigated, because it took me a lot of energy. I was always talking with people, and when there were problems, people came to me, and I thought, oh yeah, they like me, that's great. But it made me also very tired. And then I investigated that area, and I thought, I am empathetic. How do you call it in English? Empathetic, yeah. Because I feel unsafe. My upbringing was quite unsafe. So in order to feel safe, I had to tune into my father if it was safe to be around him. And from that fear and unsafety came the pattern of empathy. But the empathy actually still came out of fear. So I was not really interested in other people. I was interested in feeling safe. So I was not really helping people. No, I was trying to understand them in order to feel safe. So I was using them actually. And it's very interesting. So it's funny to see that when we look at the world, we think this is the world, but that's not true. It's the filter through which we see the world. And once we see those filters, we can change them, broaden them, clear them, focus them, and then creativity starts to flow. And there's, in your lab we have a whole theory about how these patterns are being created and how to get loose of them, how to get rid of them. But it's a quite long story, but interesting. You can find it on our website. Is it okay? Yeah. Thanks.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Like creative industries, we are always constantly creating content.
You're great.
Creating content,
Yeah.
messages.
Yeah.
And well, messaging nowadays is kind of think overwhelming for everybody and coming
Yeah.
from all sides. How do you personally deal with that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to. Yes.
How does he personally deal with like content overload and our role actually as media creators and message creators? Like, how does he deal with that?
Well, if we would, from the creative industry, create content all the time, I would be very happy. But is it actually that we create content all the time? It's a lot of garbage, isn't it?
Yes.
And a lot of stuff that we send out only to send something out. It's like a friend talking too much and you get bored and annoyed in the end. And that's what's happening, I think, in this industry right now. We are pushing so much out that the whole industry is getting annoying. I think after the bank industry, the creative industry will be the next black area. Because most of the content we send out is manipulative, is trying to make people insecure in order to make them buy something that they feel more secure. It's about dividing, it's about being more beautiful or more interesting if you buy this stuff. It's a devastating bomb, actually. And I find it amazing that a lot of companies know this and hire young creatives to do it differently. So if you have the opportunity, and of course you have, within your own company, make something beautiful. Make something that's worked well. Make something that people can relate to in a connective way. So, and then the content becomes amazing. Then the content becomes a learning space. Then the content becomes something that inspires me. Then the content is adding up to growth and to connectedness. And then it's not about how much and to deal with it, but like, come, give me more, more, more.
One final question.
Yeah?
No.
Okay, one final. Yeah. Yes.
So do you feel safe now?
Do I feel safe now? Very sweet question. Yeah, love it. I feel safer, but so for example, it was very funny. He was photographing me, and that was amazing because I was standing there, and then the camera is focusing on me, and immediately I feel insecure. Oh my god! And he said, "Trust me on this." And I thought, wow, that's amazing that he says that. Trust me on this. And that felt so good. But how many times in your life, in the daily dialogue, you really feel, or someone speaks out, trust me? And if you feel it's really meant in a way to make you feel safe. So we can give safety to each other, much more. Just to be tender and open. And in order to do so, we have to feel safe ourselves. So one thing for me to feel safe, to feel more safe than in the past, is to be better connected to my body. So when I stand here in front of you, I take a few moments of silence just to feel all these eyes. And to understand that these eyes are not criticizing me, but that all these eyes belong to people that took the effort and the time to come to listen to this talk. So that there is sweetness in those eyes. And there's an openness to learn. And then suddenly this 80, 100 people becomes a wave of beauty. Thank you very much. Thanks for that.